Statistically speaking, almost every time you see a dinosaur or a theropod one of that in a series or film, it's almost certainly gonna be a villain. And most of the time this title is given because they're trying to eat the main cast, be it human or otherwise. But does this really make them evil? Yes, there are pure dinosaur villains out there like One Eye, who's a serial, well, I won't say because I want this video monetized, and a lot of them are bad because regardless of how sad their life is, I'm sure you wouldn't want to get eaten by them or offer yourself up. But I think in light of that, it's important to recognize that some of these guys don't do this for the love of the game, but out of necessity or their horrible life. So I've gathered a list of dinosaurs who I think don't fully deserve the villain title, and there are some controversial options here, but trust me, let me cook. I remember I made a video like this when I first started taking this YouTube thing somewhat serious. Like this was in 2024, but I want to make an updated and much more clear version that isn't overrun with terrible mic noise and a massive fan in the background. Some of these poor souls became maniacs after infected by an illness they never should have gotten, and others were laughed at when they got their arm broken because they just wanted to provide for their family. I also just want to give a special shout out to all my supporters of the channel. Thanks to you guys and God's grace, it's looking like we'll get that silver plaque button in November. And if you're new here, consider hitting that subscribe button. If you like anything related to prehistory, even horror aspects, then you won't be disappointed. There's also going to be a Discord you could join in the description. Anyway, it's about time I do a rundown on some of the most misunderstood dinosaurs in film. First up is a dinosaur from a movie that honestly seems forgotten. Like I have barely heard anything about this movie 2 years after its release. I'm of course talking about Walking with Dinosaurs. Believe it or not, this movie made me angry for an entire week, but not for the reason you may think. Back then when I was a kid, I had lost my Walking with Dinosaurs documentary DVD and I wanted another one. And my mom used to buy me a DVD every weekend when I did go to school or piano classes. So one day I asked her to please get me Walking with Dinosaurs, and when she came home, I was all excited to finally rewatch the Go-To documentary. Just to see this movie poster on the disc cover. I was mad, but I couldn't be too mad because how was my mom supposed to know? But the movie Walking with Dinosaurs was pretty good in my opinion. It revolves around a Pachyrhinosaurus called Pachi who goes through trials and tribulations that ultimately make him leader of the herd in the future. And honestly, my favorite character throughout all of this was that little bird thing, whose scientific name I refuse to pronounce right now. Bro cares about Pachi more than anyone else, aside from his dad, while also somehow not giving a damn at the same time. But no dinosaur movie would be enjoyable without the carnivores, and there's quite a few. You got the Troodon or some type of dromaeosaur that put a hole in Pachi's head, and the carnivorous pterosaurs like the Quetzalcoatlus who are menacing, but not even the skies could save them from the biggest hitters in the film, the Gorgosaurus. There's an entire family with varying ages, and the leader is a robust male called Gorgon, and what I assume is his mate since she's duller in color and not that much smaller, but who knows, maybe it could just be one of his kids that's all grown up. I get why many people disliked him because he was the one who killed Pachi's father, which is an insane feat given the size difference, but I guess his experience and skill give him the edge. But at the same time, he has a family to look after as well. There are some instances where they appear to be nippy towards each other, but most predators are like that. But at the end of the day, he cares a lot about their well-being. The moment he took down the Quetzalcoatlus, he didn't take a single bite. He did a little dominance roar to assume his role and then left it for the kids to eat, and then went to scout out for more food. Given that there's more than 5 other Gorgosaurs, the quest didn't last too long, and soon they joined Gorgon on the search for food. These guys treat the Pachyrhinosaurus migration like crocodiles treat the wildebeest. Every time the herds come, they take the opportunity to get as much as they can. They don't mindlessly kill though. They take down 1 or 2 adults and they're set for a while. I mean, a family this big needs a lot of food, and life as a predator is already hard enough. You know, with trying not to starve if you don't find something to eat or risk getting seriously injured from trying to bring down that said thing you want to eat. And unfortunately for Gorgon, he got injured pretty bad. Just as he's about to kill Pachi's brother, he comes in and leads the herd into a full-on revolution, and the entire herd of course went together and fought him off. Wouldn't be a kids movie if the hero didn't take a final stand. This leads to Pachi facing off against Gorgon and uses his hole in his crest to snap his arm and then knock out his teeth. And aside from this, he took some serious hits to the body and one of his kids got slammed onto a rock. It looked as though it connected to the ribs. So after this fight, there's a very big chance that Gorgon and that one other member may have been too damaged to effectively hunt afterwards. But hey, they could have also just been fine and survived. Some folks batted an eye and were happy when Gorgon got what he deserved. And yes, I understand that you wouldn't want the hero to die, I mean that's the point of these type of movies, but at least understand Gorgon's position. He has to do what he has to do so both him and his family could survive, because if he doesn't, then they all cease to exist. But Gorgon isn't the only dinosaur who was ousted, because the main hero decided to stand up to them and have herds back him up. It is nice to see these guys getting more recognition at the end of the year. Saw Goji sent to make a video of them recently, so that's always good to see. Also, it seems that I may have severely downplayed the bigger one's size, since even though I knew there were calculations online supporting it being over 20 tons, I said it was more likely around 13 or 14 to be safe. Won't say I totally agree that the bigger one is over 20 tons given the size changes a lot in the movie, but hey, I could be extremely wrong. Anyway, the Carnos in Disney are reskinned Tyrannosaurs with a beefed up Carno head, and they are the main villains of the movie. Well, so they are portrayed. The real villain is Kron, who I plan on doing a full video on next week. These Carnos are in the same predicament as Gorgon, in that they just want to find enough food for themselves, and given that their metabolism is so fast, it makes this even more tragic. Because hours after taking down and eating an adult iguanodon, they are out again searching for food, and I guess this would make sense seeing just how fast they can move for their size, so it definitely takes a lot of energy. Not once has either individual killed for the sake of just killing. Even in the beginning, that Carno skipped over the baby power, who he could have easily dispatched, and focused on a more substantial, yet not too large herbivore that would keep it satiated while reducing injury as much as possible. It didn't pick the biggest or baddest thing there. And even in the end, after losing its mate, sibling, or hunting partner, whatever the other carnivores did, it didn't specifically enact revenge on Aldar. Yes, it wasn't too fond of him in particular, but not to the point where any action was taken out of vengeance. These Carnotaurs behave more like real animals than any dinosaur villain I've seen to date in the movie, because after the herd banded together, it didn't just charge in head on like a maniac and risk serious injury. It definitely would have been able to kill a few of the herbivores up front, but would have died after a while. So instead it isolated the weak link, which was Kron, who was separated from the herd and went straight for him. Even when Aldar pulled up, he just swatted him away and turned to Kron to try and finish him off. No real grudge or anything, because if that Carno was really in it for revenge, it would have one-topped Aldar. But sadly, its large frame and power couldn't save it from gravity, and after losing its grip on Aldar, it fell to its death, to rejoin its fallen brethren. Physically, these guys are terrifying, and some clips definitely don't help their case, including showing one tear the flesh from the iguanodon and then eating it. Yep, Disney did not care back then. And again, they couldn't have won because no one wants Aldar to die. But still, their deaths were always unsettling to me a bit, because in the end, all they wanted was some food in order to wake up another day. The next dinosaur villain is one of just unfortunate circumstances. Fate was not kind to this poor soul and led him to kill everything he loved. Primal Season 3 is coming out next year, and I for one cannot be more excited. And the previous two seasons had a lot of villains, who are actually villains. I don't think any prehistoric series has this many villains who are actually evil for the sake of being evil. But there were others who didn't have a choice, or even chose redemption. And one of these was the infected sauropod. This thing to this day is the only thing other than the witches and Night Feeder that genuinely terrified Fang and Spear. And mind you, these two have fought fire demons that could clear forest and spiders the size of a big house. This bumbling menace killed everything that moved and didn't care how much damage it took. The main goal was to slaughter or spread the infection as much as possible, and this shouldn't have been a surprise given the episode is called Plague of Madness. But the sauropod, who I think is an Argentinosaurus, didn't start off like this. It was actually the opposite. This guy was a chill dude, doing his thing, eating fruit, and probably even expecting children soon. His life and his herds was one of peace, but his dumb Parasaurolophus messed everything up. Even after seeing this cracked dinosaur, he ignored it. Only until it bit him did he finally just, kick it away. And weirdly enough, the moment the power bit the sauropod, it died, so I guess its purpose was complete, which was to spread the virus. What makes this ailment so terrifying is how fast it acts. Imagine something weighing over 100 tons showing serious symptoms with just a few hours. Serious dehydration, constant vomiting, and a change in skin color. But sadly for this poor animal, no amount of water would quench its thirst, and soon its eyes turned bloodshot, and an irrational sensation of rage took over. The only thing that mattered now was to eliminate anything that moved, and so he did, killing every other herd member there was and stomping on the eggs. And kudos to that one brave fellow who tried to stop him, but it was all for nothing. When Spear and Fang did eventually run into him when he was sleeping, this thing made an open line in the forest, knocking over trees and destroying rocks. He even went so far as to jump off a cliff to kill them, and out of what I assumed to be frustration, it went to sleep after failing to kill them. But the moment Fang and Spear came down to try and escape the valley, this absolute menace went after them again, this time going so far as to tear the flesh from its ribcage in order to get them. I mean, not even lava could stop him, because as they were on the lake of fire, this dude was still chasing them without any rest. But eventually his flesh couldn't fight against the flames, and as he let out a blood-curdling scream for the final time, he was reduced to ash. It's bad when even Spear and Fang look at him with nothing but sadness in their eyes, like they somehow knew it wasn't the sauropod itself that wanted to do any of this. He quite literally had no control over his actions, and so he died the most painful death I think I've seen so far. The last dinosaur, however, would be a bit controversial to many watching, seeing what it stood for and what it took away. I want you all to hear me out, but the OG Sharptooth in my opinion was never a true villain. Now I'm gonna get the very bad things he did out of the way before I plead my case. Actually, there's only one, and that's killing Littlefoot's mother, who was without a doubt the saddest death throughout the entire Land Before Time saga. She not only put her life over her son's but also another species, fighting the Sharptooth to the end until she hit him down a chasm, which he somehow survived. And while she won the battle, she lost the war, as she soon succumbed to her injuries as her son watched her pass away before his eyes. I may have stirred some more hate for the Sharptooth after reminding you of what he did, but again, hear me out. This doesn't just go for him but a lot of the Sharpteeth in the verse. Most of these guys come from the mysterious beyond. There are some parts with forest and jungle, but most of it is just a barren hot wasteland with nothing to eat, aside from a few sparse herbivores and other Sharpteeth. Some of the young even have to eat each other to survive, or have themselves be eaten by other Sharpteeth when times are bad, and some are just driven to madness because of their hunger. They will go through great lengths trying to capture meals that would make up a quarter of the calories they just lost trying to catch them. But they don't care. The sensation of something even remotely putting off their hunger would be mercy. And even though most are crash out, some more than others, none have went more berserk than the OG Sharptooth. This man was diving into field of thorns the size of swords to get 2 tiny baby dinosaurs, and then fought Littlefoot's mother. The adult sauropod being a target makes sense, seeing that the meal would satiate him for a while, but unlike any normal predator, he didn't seem to care about death. Over and over he kept getting up, destroying massive rocks and other structures to bring down this massive meal, since I guess the hunger pains were worse than any Littlefoot's mom could inflict. And after he failed this and fell for more than a mile, he was still hungry, so he locked on the baby dinosaurs and again went nuts trying to eat them, ramming his head into cliffs and even throwing a temper tantrum when he couldn't get to them. It took a massive boulder falling on his head and knocking him out, in order to fall into the water and finally drown. Some of the previous dinosaurs I've mentioned earlier did what they have to do because they needed food, but this guy literally went insane. And this isn't over exaggerated. Imagine being so starved to the point where you will eat anything, no matter how small, in hopes of making you feel better, even risking your own life for the sensation. And I also noticed that some have really round and bloated bellies, while other parts are much thinner in comparison. Not all of them, but some. I don't know if this is kwashiorkor or some other deficiency from lack of meat, but it had to be bad enough for some to consider cannibalism or getting killed for some food. So yeah, even though he caused the saddest death in the verse, the reason behind it is more deep than him just killing because he can. Like most on the list, if he doesn't hunt, then he dies, and man did he sure did. Except he went out due to insanity. And that's all for this video folks, hope you enjoyed it. This video was a fun one to make. It reminded me when I first started to make things serious on the channel. Also, I didn't mention any Jurassic Park dinosaurs because I think most of you wanted to see dinosaurs outside of the franchise for once, even though they're all pretty good. However, some were mentioned in my older video about the same thing basically. But that's all for now folks. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Trust in the Lord with all of your heart and lean not onto your own understanding. Enjoy your weekend guys.